I should have listened. 3 words I've said to myself every single morning for the past 2 years. They still hit just as hard today as they did the first time I whispered them into the dark of my apartment. Completely alone, surrounded by the kind of silence that only exists after you've destroyed something real. This is a confession, not the kind where I walk away looking good. Not with a clean ending. This is where I admit someone who loved me genuinely tried to protect me, and I decided I knew better. Her name was Renata. This isn't about losing her. This is about what she saw in me that I refused to see, and what happened when I proved her right in the worst possible way. We were together for almost 3 years. When things started falling apart, the reason wasn't dramatic. No betrayal, no explosive fight. It was slower than that. It was the accumulation of every time I chose something over her without realizing. The last real conversation we had, she sat across from me at a table we'd bought together. From a flea market on a Sunday morning when we were still happy, and she said something I didn't take seriously. She said, "You're going to chase this version of yourself that doesn't exist yet, and you're going to lose everything real. And the worst part is, you won't even see it happening until it's too late." I told her she was being dramatic. I actually said those words. I told her she was being dramatic. She wasn't angry when I said it. She just got very quiet, and then she said, "I hope I'm wrong." And she left. Not that night, but within the month. Quietly, carefully, like she'd already mourned it before it was over. And I let her go, because somewhere inside I genuinely believed she was wrong. I had this idea of myself, this person I was going to become, the focused one, the successful one, the one who had it all figured out. I thought I just needed space to become him. I thought losing Renata was the price I had to pay for growth. What actually happened over the next 18 months was nothing like I imagined. The first few months felt almost electric. I was free to build, free to grind, free to become whoever I told myself I was. I threw everything into my work. I cut off friendships I thought were distractions. I moved into a smaller place to save money, and stayed up until 3 in the morning convinced that sacrifice was the same thing as progress. But here's what I didn't account for. When you strip away the human parts of your life, the work doesn't fill the space. It just makes the space more obvious. By month 7, I was exhausted in a way that sleep didn't fix. Not physically exhausted, although that was there too. I mean, exhausted at the core. I had no one to talk to at the end of the day. No one who actually knew me. I'd built this focused, productive, isolated life, and it felt like living inside a museum. Everything was preserved and nothing was alive. I started calling old friends at weird hours, apologizing for things. Some of them answered, some didn't. I reached out to people I'd pushed away and realized with horrible clarity that I'd been doing it for years, not just recently. This pattern Renata had seen, this tendency to treat people closest to me like temporary furniture in the life I was really building for myself. It wasn't something that started with us. It was something that had always been there. She just happened to be the one brave enough to name it. I looked back at the relationship with new eyes, and the picture was devastating. All the time she'd said she felt like an afterthought, and I'd convinced her she was wrong. All the time she'd asked for presents, and I'd given her effort in different directions. She hadn't been asking for much. She'd been asking for the basic human thing of feeling like she mattered. And I had systematically failed to give it to her while genuinely believing I was a good partner. That's the cruelest part of patterns like this. They're invisible from the inside. You can love someone and still treat them like they're secondary to your own internal narrative without ever once feeling like the villain. I never felt like the villain. I felt like a man with ambitions and priorities and a vision. But from her side of that table, I was just someone who kept choosing himself in ways that never quite added up to love. Around month 10, I hit the bottom of it. Not dramatically, nothing crashed. I just woke up one morning and sat at the edge of my bed and thought about Renata's face when she said she hoped she was wrong. And I understood for the first time that she hadn't said it with bitterness. She'd said it with grief. She already knew. She was grieving something she could see coming that I was completely blind to. I tried reaching out to her once. One message. I kept it short because I didn't want to make it about what I needed, which would have just been more of the same. I said I understood now. I said I was sorry. I said she had been right, and I wished I'd been honest enough with myself to hear her when it mattered. She responded a few days later. She was kind. She always was. She said she appreciated it, and that she hoped I was doing well. And that was it. Clean. Complete. The kind of closure that doesn't feel like closure because it isn't what you lost that you're mourning anymore. You're mourning the person you could have been while you had someone who believed in that person standing right in front of you. The lesson didn't arrive all at once. It came in pieces over months. But here's where I've landed. And I want to say this carefully because it's not meant to be a neat little bow on a messy story. The people who know us best see things we can't. Not because they're smarter than us, but because they're standing outside the story. We're telling about ourselves. We all walk around with this internal narrative, this version of events that casts us as the protagonist, making reasonable choices. And the people who love us can see where that narrative is costing us something real. When they speak up, the easiest thing is to tell them they're being dramatic, insecure, they don't understand. Because if they're right, then the story we've built about ourselves has to change. And that's terrifying. I'm not the same person I was sitting at that table. I've done the slow, unglamorous work of learning to be present, of recognizing when I'm treating people like supporting characters, of choosing to stay when everything in me wants to chase something abstract. It hasn't been fast and it hasn't been comfortable, and no one gave me a gold star for it. But I think about Renata's voice when she said those words. I think about the steadiness in it, the lack of anger, the genuine hope that she was wrong. That is what love looks like when it's honest. It doesn't yell. It doesn't punish. It just tells you the truth and leaves space for you to decide what to do with it. I decided too late. That's the part I have to live with. And if any of this sounds like your life right now, if there's someone in your world who keeps saying something you keep dismissing, who keeps pointing at a pattern you keep defending, I am not here to tell you what to do. I'm just here to tell you what it looks like from the other side of having been wrong. It looks like a flea market table in an apartment you no longer share. It looks like a message read after 3 days. It looks like someone who hoped they were wrong about you and wasn't. Pay attention to the people who care enough to be honest with you even when it costs them something. Because that kind of honesty is rare. And by the time you learn to recognize it, it might already be walking out the door.